Welcome to IER TLDR, Valentine's Day edition. I am your host, Jasmine Garcia, and joining me today are...
Sam Marchioni. Finished drinking the Amontillado in the walls, so please send more.
Shamila Karanakaran, I'm seeing the writing in the wall.
River Lane, and the walls are still nice. A little warm, a little crowded.
I'm Ellie, and instructions were unclear. I wound up with a Pink Floyd joke instead of a wall joke.
Grady Smithy, 404, wall joke not found.
And so today, in honor of Valentine's Day, and in honor of the fact that the La Belle La Bete double feature is facing some issues, in spite of half of it being in the vault for all these months,
It's dying of loneliness.
Oh no! So instead, we are just going to be talking about some of our favorite ships in the public domain. And River apparently has decided, because they do not have a ship to supply, they are going to give us a rubric.
I am giving you a rubric. I'm in the process of formulating it as we speak, but here are my judgments off the cuff. 1. Recognizability. Is this the sort of pairing that gets 1,012 adaptations, that inspires 1,001 rewrites and adaptations and reskins in fanfiction? 2. Yearning potential. How much yearning does it contain? Because you know that sometimes the good romance of it all is about the pining and the yearning, because a lot of writers don't know how to write functioning relationships and they all suffer moonlighting syndrome. Number 3. Does one half of the pairing die? It's so common. I feel like it just should be a qualification. And number 4. If the pairing gets any fun bonus points, or if you sway me into shipping it, you will get fun bonus points.
So the judge is amenable to bribes, is what you're saying.
The judge is amenable to well-convincing arguments, because here's the thing, my dear listeners, or Jazz's dear listeners, I will not claim you yet. That's for August, where I will become your problem.
Oh god.
They are technically listening to you now, though.
Correct. I am someone who is always wary of, ships in canon, because I have had too many of them suffer moonlighting syndrome, where the writer gets them together finally, and then they forget how to write both characters.
Castle.
So Castle and Bones are the biggest example.
You're really gonna like the X-Files.
The X-Files stays in a permanent state of yearning, and no one knows what to do with it.
No, they don't. They've had 2 kids together.
I'm not there yet. I'm still in the first season. We gotta get them to like each other first. But it means that whenever I come into a property that wants me to, get a pairing together, I gotta be real fucking convinced that they are worth the effort and energy. I think on my one hand, I have 2.5, and one would argue they're the same ship in different fonts. So, so that is where I am coming from. If I get the unofficial offering of non-canonical, but come on y'all, I do offer Mercutio and Benvolio from Romeo and Juliet, or Hamlet and Horatio from Hamlet.
Mercutio and Tybalt are totally X's, by the way.
Oh, 1,000%.
And they're making it everyone's problem.
Fantastic. One day we will absolutely do a non-canon ship one.
Also, we're going cumulative score fashion. You're getting points out of 5.
Is there an elimination element?
No.
Is this subjected to an audience vote that they have to call in?
No. But it does mean I have to do math at 11 o'clock in the morning when the coffee is only starting to kick in.
You chose this. You made this decision.
I know I did.
You could rate us the way I rate movies. Vibes.
I mean, yes. But this is gonna be somewhat vibes as well.
Yeah, exactly. You get me. It's and it's not even, were the vibes good? I don't know, Mad God's a great movie. The vibes were rancid. Alright, who's going first?
I have 2, because the one that I had my heart truly set on is not public domain in America. But after doing a bit of digging, I verified that it is public domain in Canada, and so I do get to use this via the loophole. The first one is Gatsby and Daisy Buchanan. Hear me out.
Interesting.
Not because I think it's something to aspire to, because I think it is one of the perfect cautionary tales in how you should not let yourself be stuck in an unhappy relationship just because it's safe and you have the comfort of the safety. Gatsby is a trash fire. Daisy is also a trash fire, but she is a trash fire in a different way than Gatsby. She's staying married to one of the worst people ever because financial security. She has a nice, comfortable life. Maybe she'd be happy with Gatsby, but scandal, what happens if I don't have the same security, etc. So I'm just going to stay over here and be miserable and take everybody with me. This is a perfect example of do not ever do this. And part of the reason I like it so much is because when the Lerman movie came out, and this is also part of why I have that as my favorite adaptation of the thing, I realized I had hit an emotional plateau, and I was with somebody that was starting to feel really strongly about me, and it was never going to go past, I like you a lot, and it wouldn't be fair to keep them strung along without ever getting more than that from me. And so I set them free, and we're still friends. And yeah, the personal angle of helping me save myself from getting into a situation that became bad is why I love it so much. But for the one that I really wanted, it is a story which is part of a long, epic, sweeping saga written by a man using the pen name Cordwainer Smith. His father was the U.S. ambassador to China in the early 20th century. He fell in love with the storytelling conventions and the way that Chinese stories were structured, and that informed most of his work when he started writing. And it is Camel and Lord Gesticos from the Ballad of Lost Camel, which, oh my god, the yearning. The yearning, the yearning, the yearning. The really short TLDR version of this is humanity discovers a way to extend their lifespans, spread out among the stars, live for 1,000+ years. And part of the way that they accomplish this utopia is by uplifting animals into being able to be shaped like humans, perform jobs like humans, but not be treated as humans. They are literally referred to as underpeople.
Paging Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, it's just if it was more successful. And the underpeople are basically treated as pets at best. And in a previous story that this is the sequel to, an underperson martyred themselves in order to force humanity to realize what they were doing, and inspired one of the ruling members of what is called the instrumentality of mankind, the people who make the decisions for all of humanity and everyone else, to literally program her descendants to crusade for justice, and if not true equality, at least greater equality than humanity had allowed the underpeople. And so Camel is one of the earliest catgirls that I've found any mention of. And all the underpeople have the first letter of their species, an apostrophe, and then their actual name. Camel is essentially a red Persian catgirl. Lord Gesticos is the descendant of the member of the instrumentality that decided, I am going to program my descendants to make society better than it is. And it's about how he approaches her because she knows the hidden leader of the underpeople. They've developed their own sub-society there, and works with her to get the underpeople to actually be recognized as people and have rights. And he's the first human who has ever been decent. It's not like people have been horrible to her, but everyone before this has viewed her as just essentially a thing, and he's the first person who actually treats her like a person, and she falls desperately in love with him, but can't ever act on it, because any relationship like that is literally illegal. And he's moving along thinking, oh yeah, she likes me a lot because, yeah, I'm probably the first person who ever been decent to her, but and then in the end, long after Camel has died, because she just has normal modern human life in years, and he's like 1700 or something, the leader of the underpeople, who is similarly long-lived, is talking to him as he's dying, and Gesticos says, I just need to know, did she actually love me? And that's when he finally finds out.
Funky.
And anybody who has ever been pining for somebody that they know is absolutely wrong for them, that they know they don't stand a chance with for whatever reason, be it that they live halfway across the world and you're both broke, or just, society will come down on you like a ton of bricks if you do. There's something in there that you can find to respond to.
Very funky and fresh.
All right, so basically my two submissions here come in a very particular category. These are two ladies that look Orpheus right in the eye and say, R.I.P. to you and Eurydice, but we're different. I submit to you two mythological figures, first being one that you're all going to be a little bit more familiar with, Osiris and Isis. And yes, we're going to ignore the fact that, yes, technically they are brother and sister as well. We're going to ignore that for now, okay?
They're gods. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, they're gods. You just sort of roll with that shit.
Their god's DNA doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes, you're correct.
That's
but
Riordan's
yes.
story, and we're sticking to it.
Yes.
Harold,
They're deities, Harold.
But yes, for the listeners who do not know, but basically the reason I compared them to Orpheus and Eurydice, because this is another case of one half of the couple dying. In this case, Osiris basically gets murdered by his brother Set and has pieces of him scattered throughout the world. Basically. And Isis, being the awesome mother goddess she is, scours the world to pick up those pieces and literally piece her man back together. Like, if that isn't true love, I don't know what is.
Yes.
Wasn't she not able to find his dick?
Yeah, if anything, that just further proves my point, don't you think? And additionally, in a similar vein, I submit to you Savitri and Satyavan from Hindu mythology. The first recorded version of it being in the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata pops up a lot whenever we talk about Hindu mythology. It just makes sense. But yes, so I imagine this is going to be less known, so I know I'm going to lose points for that, but that's okay.
It's a 5-point scale. You can make it up in other capacities.
And I think I will. But yes, basically there was a childless king who basically engaged in 18 years of penance to try to win the favor of the goddess Savitri, and he did indeed succeed, so she was willing to grant him a wish, basically. He wanted to have many sons, but Savitri decided to bless him with a daughter instead, and she was named Savitri by her father in honor of the goddess. And she grew to be basically the most desired woman in the kingdom, but no one had the guts to ask for her hand. They were so intimidated by her. And so she's just like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to find a husband of my own. And eventually she finds the son of a blind king, which is Satyavan, but she was warned, it's like, yeah, he's perfect for you, absolutely, but unfortunately he's destined to die in a year. But she still decides to marry him, and when Yama, the god of death, arrives to collect his soul, she basically follows him and keeps on kind of trying to convince him to not take him. She's like, I promise I'll be virtuous, I promise I'll show compassion, just please give my husband back. And while Yama is impressed by it, he will basically give her any boon of her choice except for the life of Satyavan. So first she then asks, okay fine, can my father-in-law's sight be restored? And then she asks for him to get his kingdom back. He grants them. And then she asks Yama to be the mother of 100 sons fathered by Satyavan. Point is, he does grant her that, but the only way to do that is for Satyavan to not be dead anymore. Because, you know, this is before IVF, folks. And they were both blessed with long lives from then on.
Jazz, I'm sorry, is giving birth to 100 sons really a blessing?
Apparently it was back then. I have to,
You know.
I have to agree. It's like, honey, are you sure about this?
You know, it's a metaphor. Deal with it.
It's one hell of a loophole.
And are these multiple births?
It is after the 100 Sons.
Boo.
Yeah, wow. But yeah, no, I was always so struck by how clever Savitri was. And it was kind of neat to see this mythical lady not only being portrayed as gorgeous, but also really smart and devoted to her husband that she uses her smarts to get him out of a bad situation. I just think they're neat.
Incredible.
There's just something about trying to yank your love out of the jaws of death, man.
All right, sick and sexy.
Who wants to go next?
I guess that makes me up next. So I'm actually, ironically enough, here to talk about Orpheus and Eurydice. You know, after Hades Town came out, I'm here to talk about Carmilla and Laura.
Of course she is. Who else would it be, though?
Come the fuck on. I mean, I do love the Orphic story, but not like the actual myth all that much. There's a lot of stories that I like that take...
Can't say stuff like that on a podcast.
Can too.
We're not in fucking Disneyland, though.
I like stories that take inspiration from Orpheus and Eurydice. Like, Harrow the Ninth is one of my favorite books right now, and it's very much Orpheus and Eurydice inspired. But anyway, I don't know, like, there's a bunch of more conventional ships I guess I could have picked. But I just had this notice. I'm still on Tumblr. I guess on Tumblr, people are going back to Tumblr. Is that a thing?
Yep.
And I keep seeing this thing going around that, like, the FF category on AO3 finally reached 1 million words.
I saw that too, yes.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like my reason why I go for FF pairings so much, because, like, man, somebody's gotta rep for these people. And so, like, Carmilla and Laura
Hell yes.
are the original lesbian vampires, or lesbian vampire and victim lover. I don't know.
It's complicated.
It's complicated, and part of the reason why I like them so much is that, like, the basic story of Carmilla and Laura, very, very briefly, is this girl is living in her big old castle out in the wilderness, Laura. Carriage crash happens nearby, and so they take the girl from the carriage, Carmilla, in. She starts feeling sick, staying in bed more often, but she gets really close with Carmilla. her dad discovers that Carmilla's a vampire, and they kill Carmilla. And the writer very clearly intends this to be like a horrifying story. Like, oh my god, this woman, this lesbian is preying on this dude's daughter. How awful. Now, as a lesbian myself, are all these lesbian vampires, are they around? They single?
Let me know if you find them.
But more than that, I think that there is an element where a lot of what made Carmilla horrifying when it first came out can be recontextualized to be not even necessarily a more positive story. Carmilla still dies at the end of a lot of interpretations, but to be more understandable as a queer intentional story. You know, one of the things that I point out whenever I talk about Carmilla is Laura is never consulted on killing Carmilla. She finds out Carmilla is a vampire, and Carmilla throws away an opportunity to kill someone who's trying to kill her when Laura is there. And she just gets killed. And we never find out how Laura felt about it. There is a line at the end, which I think the writer intended, Laura says that she still imagines she hears Carmilla's footsteps in the hallway. And, that is clearly intended to be like, she's haunted by this horrible experience. It also could read like, man, I miss her. And yeah, I admit, I'm a toxic Yuri save me kind of gal. So there is an element where I'm like, I will always be willing to go to bat for the monster and the person. But I do think that there is, in the story of Carmilla, a view of queerness from the outside of it by people who don't approve that sort of accidentally cuts deeper than I think a straight person was trying to depict it positively would have done, just because it actually depicts someone who does kind of miss Carmilla, and it shows how much those relationships got affected by the outside expectations in that time period. Also the yearning. Like, man, if it's 10 years later and you still think you hear your girlfriend's footsteps in the hallway, you're yearning, babe. You're yearning.
And the way Carmilla talks about her before they die, and
Jasmine does bring up a good point. If you compare the way like Dracula talks about Mina 25 years later versus how Carmilla talks about Laura, there is a much less predatory and much more romantic overtone to their relationship. Or the way Dracula talks about Jonathan. She also doesn't throw any windows, any mirrors out the window, so she's got it head and shoulders above Dracula.
Well, Dracula was never supposed to be romantic.
It's not just Francis's fault.
I said this before and I'll say it again.
Hollywood.
They made more sexy Draculas in the 50s. Francis was one of them like, what if we just went with it? What if we just rolled with it? In fact, I honestly feel like the best summary of that movie is, what if we just rolled with it?
I will say, to the inherent eroticism of vampire, number one, gestures vaguely at the internet's current fictional boyfriend.
Oh, that white-haired motherfucker.
Correct.
Who?
Astarion.
Oh, this is Baldur's Gate bullshit.
Number two.
How soon they forget Dolly.
Considering I currently have on one of my leather jackets a blood bag that says vampire juice pouch on it, and my friend made a button that is, again, a blood bag, and it just says respect the pouch.
That I would get that. I also, a friend of mine did get me a werewolf bait t-shirt that I am too scared to wear out in public.
Oh, that's so
It is
funny.
just, there's the implications of some of the stuff on it are just a tiny bit too explicit for me to actually wear.
It's so incredible.
Valid. But yeah, vampires, man.
Vampires. The inherent eroticism of the predator liking you.
The inherent eroticism of monster fucking.
Would it be? Yes.
Exactly.
This is why everyone's on Vampire Tinder.
Yes.
We can fix them.
I could put other entries in. I'm not gonna. Carmilla and Laura. This one's for the girls.
Hell yeah.
The girls and the gays.
And you talk about the web series, the days.
Alright, so I had 3, but one of them is kind of cheating because it's the Russian fairy tales of Ivan Tsarevich and Vasilisa the Beautiful. And the problem is, both of those are placeholder names, so they're in like a bajillion fairy tales.
So what you're saying is it's kind of like they took these two basic characters and there's just a whole lot of fan fiction about them.
Kind of, yeah.
Their tales keep being retold.
Yeah. If I had to pick one of the fairy tales that I remembered, because my grandmother and my grandfather used to visit Russia a lot, and they would always bring me back like a book of Russian fairy tales. So one of my favorites was Ivan Tsarevich and the Grey Wolf. So third son of a king, and there's a firebird stealing the apples from his father's golden tree. And so Ivan Tsarevich, his brothers fail to catch the bird, but he gets one feather from the tail of the bird, and he goes out on a quest, and then a wolf attacks and eats his horse, but then it turns out Wolf is friend, and Wolf turns into like his fairy godmother and brings him over Russia doing these amazing tasks so Ivan can get a bunch of cool swag, including the Firebird, and eventually he gets the Firebird because this one king who has it really wants this princess who isn't Vasilisa, her name is Yelena, but the wolf disguises itself as Yelena, eats the king. Ivan and the real Yelena have fallen in love and they're riding off into the sunset on the wolf, and they make it. Russian fairy tales are fucking wild.
They are on a new level, and I do appreciate that there is no wolf slander in this fairy tale.
Oh, and River, you might be interested in noting in some variations of the story, the Firebird is a cassowary.
Incredible! What the fuck is a cassowary doing in Russia?
That's a good question. I have questions.
Shut up, it's magic.
Wrecking havoc.
With those
I think that
raptor
if-
claws.
Well,
I think if a cassowary was living anywhere else other than Australia, the local population is decimated, including but not limited to any local human settlements.
Editor Jasmine here. Why cassowaries? You should listen to 6 Degrees of Star Wars' Princess Bride episode.
Sam, I have some clarification questions for the rest of my rubric for this ship alone.
Yep.
Do either of them die, and is it one of the other's fault?
oh, one of them does die, and it's kind of their fault. Because remember how I mentioned Ivan is a third son?
Correct.
Well, when he comes back to his family's kingdom, his brothers see all the swag and they're like, well, fuck that shit. So they chop Ivan up into a bajillion pieces
I'm noticing a pattern.
If only Isis was there.
and say that now Yelena has to marry one of them and they'll get the swag. And so then the wolf finds Ivan's pieces, puts them all back together, revives him, carries him to the wedding, and depending on the version, either the wolf eats the evil brothers or the evil brothers are made to be servants. I prefer version A. And Ivan and Yelena get married and live happily ever after.
10 out of 10 best boy. That wolf is best boy.
What is the yearning factor?
The yearning factor has to come from the fact that the way Ivan and Yelena get together is, like I said, he's kidnapping her so she can be married to a different king who has a different thing that Ivan wants, but they see each other and they're yearning, and then the wolf's like, God damn it, I can't take this yearning, so I'm gonna shapeshift into the princess, hide the princess here, I'm gonna go, I'll marry the king and eat him.
The wolf is so proactive.
This is like a really cracked out Shrek AU.
I love this wolf.
Got
It's
it.
not-
So it is implied
No,
yearning, it is not textual yearning.
It is canonical yearning in that they're in love with each other and they think they can't be together until the wolf is like, I'm not dealing with this shit.
Very fair.
The next one is the Chinese legend of Hoi and Chang'e,
Editor Jasmine here. Happy Lunar New Year, by the way.
which I briefly got obsessed with because of the film Over the Moon, and also the fact that that version of Chang'e not only is voiced by Philippa Soo, but she looks like a 3D cartoon Jiranjie Zhao. I love Jiranjie Zhao. It's absolutely bullshit that Heavenly Tyrant is being delayed, but Hoi and Chang'e, if you know Hoi's backstory, he has to shoot down all but one of the sons because they're turning the earth into absolute garbage, and then the Jade Emperor's like, I know I told you to get my sons out of the sky, but I didn't want you to kill them, so now you and your wife have to go live on earth as mortals. And, you know, at first there's some yearning for heaven, and that's not the kind of yearning you're looking for, River, but then they do get one method of immortality. And so, depending on the version or the translation, either it's one immortality that can make you full deity, or you can split it in half and, you know, you'll be still human but immortal. And depending on the version, either Chang'e is super greedy about it, so she takes it all without really consulting Hoi, or there's like an evil person who tries to take it from her, and so it's a noble sacrifice. Either way, Chang'e floats up to the moon and she and Hoi are separated forever, and they're mourning each other, and he commemorates his love by starting the Autumn Moon Festival, where you can get some very delicious moon cakes.
Exactly. I had to go look it up because I was like, this sounds really familiar. My internet boss has done a video about it.
Yep, mooncakes are the fucking bomb, and what's more beautiful than love that comes with a celebration and a delicious snack?
Truly, we love some fried dough in here in this house.
And, you know, because he has to die, and Chang'e is super lonely, waiting for him forever on the moon.
I love that. I don't, but, you know.
You love it in the way that all tragic ships are loved.
And it is technically her fault. Whether or not you think it's morally her fault, she had to take all the immortality potions, so the fact that he died is her fault. My final one is Eros and Psyche, because I am the most basic of basic, and of course I gravitated to the Greek myth that had the most to do with Beauty and the Beast.
Eros and Psyche, my absolute beloved.
So, very abbreviated TLDR for those of you who don't know Eros and Psyche. Psyche is the most beautiful human woman in the world, to the point where people are favoring her over Aphrodite. Aphrodite said, fuck that, son, go make her fall in love with a monster. And depending on the version you read, either Eros stabs himself with his own arrows of love by mistake and falls in love with her. I like the versions where he looks at her and there's no love potion involved. He's just like, oh my god, she's so pretty, I love her. Either way, he sets up this scheme where he says, where Psyche ends up going to an oracle, and the oracle's like, you're supposed to marry the most terrifying monster known to humanity, and everyone's like, oh no! And Psyche gets whisked off to a magic palace by the west wind, and there she marries her unseen monster suitor, who, yes, is Eros, and his one thing is like, never look at me, and she's like, oh, okay. But then she's like, I'm super lonely, can my sisters come to visit? And he's like, yeah, sure, just don't tell them anything that would make me super vulnerable. And she's like, oh, okay. And then the sisters are like, god damn it, why does our little sister have all the nice swag? Fuck, we gotta like take all this from her. And so they start corrupting her. And Psyche, bless her heart, she's not very smart at this point, so they're like, you should go look on your husband, and if he's super ugly, you should kill him. And she's like, okay. And so she goes into his bedroom with an oil lamp. She sees him and she's like, ooh, pretty. And again, depending on the version, she might have stuck herself with a love arrow, but I like the versions where she didn't do that, because love arrows are cheating. But anyway, she's going, ooh, pretty, and even the oil in her lamp is going, ooh, pretty, and it jumps on him and burns him, and Eros is like, god damn it, I gave you one thing to do. He runs back crying to his mom, and Aphrodite's like, oh, now it's personal. And so she sets Psyche on a ton of really wild tasks, like, hey, you see those golden rams? Yeah, go get their fleece. Oh, by the way, they're totally gonna kill you. And Psyche's like, fuck! But she goes and she does that, and there's also the classic fairy tale thing of, hey, see all these grains? You have to sort all these grains. And Psyche, being a proto-Disney princess, has woodland creatures to do it for her, specifically ants, and there's a ton of other quests, and at this point, the other gods are getting involved, and they're like, Aphrodite, please stop keeping these kids apart. Isn't this going against your whole brand of love? And Aphrodite's like, she hurt my special boy.
Also, it should be noted that in some tellings, Eros is locked up, and it's like, Mom, I forgive her already, please stop!
Yep.
Mom!
Mom, you're embarrassing me!
Sorry, son, can't hear you over the need to punish.
And at that point, the gods are like, okay, we gotta help her. So, like, Zeus himself, in a rare moment of non-dickishness, sends an eagle to go get fancy water from a stream at the top of a killer mountain for Psyche. And Aphrodite's like, okay, you know what? Go to fucking hell. And she sends Psyche down into the underworld to get beauty from Persephone. And Psyche, being awesome, is able to charm the very good boy guarding the underworld. Is Cerberus a good boy or a good girl? I don't know Cerberus's gender.
Cerberus is gender, but also Cerberus is usually a good boy.
Alright, well, Psyche manages to get past the good boy with cake. Really hope that did not hurt the good boy's digestive system. And Hades and Persephone, who have their own bad cases of yearning, are like, oh god, yeah, fine, we'll help. And so, depending on the theory, some people think that Persephone put, like, death sleep in there specifically to fuck with Aphrodite. But keep in mind, Psyche has been through the ringer, so she kind of wants to just, you know, make herself look a little pretty before she sees Eros, and she does the one thing she's not supposed to do. She opens the box, and she gets hit with the death sleep, and at this point, Eros is like, fuck it! He breaks out, he goes to her, he brings her to Olympus, he gets her revived, Psyche becomes a goddess with butterfly wings, and they eventually have a baby who is known as either Joy or Bliss, depending on what translation you read, and they live happily forever because love and soul have united.
I don't know if they'll still be out by the time this episode goes up, but my internet boss does currently have Eros and Psyche pins for Valentine's Day.
Best ship. And it really, like, it's got everything. It's got the yearning, it's got the active heroine, it's got the Beauty and the Beast vibes, it's got Greek gods being dicks and sometimes not being dicks.
You know it's bad when Zeus isn't the asshole in a situation.
Truly.
But yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I had even talked about this with Paige Lavoie about how it's interesting how all of the Hades and Persephone's girlies tend to really love Beauty and the Beast when that isn't the Greek myth that inspired Beauty and the Beast. I just find that funny.
You'll hear all my opinions about Beauty and the Beast when we get to the Beauty and the Beast episode finally released from the vault.
Oh, God.
It's going to be so much fun.
Okay, so this one is mostly based on nostalgia for me because it was baby's first novel. I read this when I was 8 years old. It is Anne and Gilbert from Anne of Green Gables, and it contains much of the trope that Sam hates. But
look, I was in a musical version of Anne of Green Gables, and there's some different trauma related there.
So, anyways, this is like a classic Canadian literature. Like, I think pretty much every Canadian has read it once in their lifetime. Basically, Anne of Green Gables is about this orphan girl who comes from Nova Scotia to Prince Edward Island because these siblings, Matthew and Marilla, they wanted a boy to help out on their farm, but the orphanage accidentally sends them a girl instead, and there are many hijinks, but she eventually gets to stay at Green Gables. And then here, on her first day of school, well, Gilbert he went out west with his father because his father was ill, and back in Edwardian times it was like fashionable to like go out west and recover and then come back, and like he has pretty much all the girls on Twitter about, you know, his good looks, his grades, everything. And Anne is the only one not paying attention to him because she is staring out the window daydreaming. And Gilbert, being the 14-year-old boy that he is, he tries to get her attention until he finally just grabs her braids and says carrots. Now, this is a big berserk button for Anne because she is very sensitive about her red hair, and she pretty much like whacks her slate over his head, which, well, if a boy were to do that to me, I would probably do that as well, so good for her. And it is the beginning of this long rivalry with little tender moments where there is an instance where Anne falls off a roof because someone dared her to walk on the drain pipe, and he rescues her and carries her off. And then there's also an instance where he saves her from drowning because she and her friends were playing like the Lady of Shalott, where they float her out on a boat in the middle of the lake and she got stranded. But it's not until the end of the book where Matthew dies of a heart attack, and Anne was thinking of giving up her position as a school teacher because she can't be away from Marilla, not when Matthew is dead. And she eventually finds out that Gilbert had given up his scholarship for her. And it all culminates into her meeting him at the bend of the road and finally deciding that they're going to be friends after all. And it is the start of a very beautiful, hilarious friendship because you get the next two books with them growing up over the years, becoming teachers. And yeah, there is a little bit sort of bicker, but it's the fun kind of playful banter. And then it almost gets ruined because Gilbert confesses that he's in love with her. And Anne she spent the first 11 years of her life like in a terrible orphanage and with terrible foster parents, so she does not want to fall in love. She feels like she's not ready for that, and she has all these romantic ideas about eventually wants to marry, even though she is a bisexual disaster. And it's not until Gilbert catches pneumonia and almost dies that she realizes, oh, I can't be without. And it does lead to a reunion in the orchard at the Blythe's house, and that's when they finally decide to get together. And it is something that is very famous in the series of movies with Megan Follows as Anne and Jonathan Crombie, rest in peace, as Gilbert. Like I said, this is very nostalgic for me because back in grade school, I also had a Gilbert on my own. We had a very fraught rivalry, but we were also the only two brown kids in class, so we kind of got each other in a way that no one else would. And I don't know, we just sort of drifted after that, and sometimes I still think about what could have been, but yeah, little baby me, little autistic baby me, like, was terrible with friendships at the time, but I think maybe another time, in other circumstances, we might have been friends. But my entire childhood was that one book series. Well, it's not just because like Ella Montgomery is very, very poetic with her language, but also I always imagined Anne as a black redhead, like Erin Kellyman.
Oh, fuck yeah, with all the freckles.
Yes, because I never thought of her as white, even though on the cover there was always like this white girl with straight red hair, her hair in braids, but I thought, no, that can't be it. Because Anne is always thought of as an outsider in Avonlea. And actually in this YouTube series called Project Green Gables, they actually have Anne as a black girl. So it just took so much of Anne's character and adds so much dimension to it. And the way that they portray Anne and Gilbert's relationship there, they do absolutely clash, because Anne, rightfully so, smashes him with an iPad because he put her hands in her hair, which you do not do with a black girl, and said it was like their dogs. So rightfully so, she smashes him, and it takes a full season for them to literally work on themselves to get to a place where they can actually be friends and move past this and be better all for it.
I think I remember when the Netflix adaptation was running, somebody
Yes,
did an edit,
I remember that.
using
Yeah.
the smacks from Hollaback Girl for that tablet crack.
Because that's
what you do.
That is what you do.
I think I remember that edit.
Yeah.
Okay.
R.I.P. Anne with an E.
R.I.P. Anne with an E. Alright, so I have the scores tallied.
Yes.
But, with permission from Jasmine, I would like to give each guest a last-minute attempt at bribery to try and raise their scores.
Sure,
For the bonus
why not?
point
This'll be funny.
category. Either with evidence from their ship or otherwise attempts at character building. I will like to hear them out because all of your bonus points can be boosted at least a little bit. We'll start with Sam and then go Grady, Jazz, Shmila, Ellie. Cool?
Cool.
Alright, Sam, sway any of your bonus points.
Ivan Sarovich and the Grey Wolf has Horsey? I don't know. I can't think of anything else for bribery points because I think I've covered the bases on a lot of them, and you already have some familiarity with 2 out of the 3 because of your internet boss. Delicious pastries.
Fair enough.
I will remind you of
All
delicious
right.
pastries.
Delicious pastries indeed. Grady.
I'll let the Gatsby Daisy one stand or fall on its own trash fire merits. For Kamel and Justicost, I just want to say the yearning really is over 9,000.
Plus, the internet loves catgirls.
The internet does love catgirls.
Yes.
Alright,
And redheads.
fair enough. Jazz.
I mean, like I said, R.I.P. to Orpheus, but they're different. But yeah, it's just, again, we got these really cool, badass ladies who would still do anything for the men they love, which I do think there is kind of this pervasive sense on the internet that you can't have both, and fuck that shit.
Very fair. Shmila.
Well, Anne actually dedicates her first ever book to Gilbert. So there's something along the lines of posterity for that. Also, I present to you Erin Kellyman playing Anne.
Those are some convincing arguments, yes. Alright, Ellie.
You know, I was sort of flipping through a PDF I have of Carmilla while we were talking. The implication very much is that when the general is attacked by Carmilla, Carmilla decides to let him go because Laura is there. So even though Laura didn't do it and wasn't involved, she still died because of her. And also, rest of your life spent yearning, and Carmilla can turn into a big cat.
That is true.
Like I don't know how much more I can say. Big cat. Big cat.
Panther cat or...
I don't recall. I don't know if it's super specified. I think it's kind of implied to be a panther.
And may I also just say, this line comes out of Carm's mouth. I have been in love with no one and never shall unless it should be with you. I live in you and you would die for me. I love you so. Like,
See, I wasn't going to cite actual text, but yeah, Jazz has got it.
That's a powerful line.
it really is.
Alright, I have your final scores.
Let's do it.
So we're just gonna go in order that they were presented rather than do a winner. Winners will be revealed at the end.
Fair enough.
Alright, Grady. Gatsby and Daisy scored a very healthy 14. They lost a little bit in the bonus points, and they lost a little bit in the yearning factor. Like, I get the yearning, but it was a very unhealthy yearning. They did, however, have the highest death score, because truly, Gatsby's death was basically Daisy's fault.
Yeah.
Yep. Almost directly.
Your Camille and Gentricos got a lot in the bonus points and a lot in the yearning. Lost points in recognizability and in the death count. Because, they weren't sort of responsible for each other's deaths. That was just sort of the natural process of a long-running series. So they got a 10. Jazz. Both of your ships scored a 12.
Okay.
You gained a little bit of a bonus point in the Osiris and Isis. High marks there. Your Savitri and Satyavan? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
I'm incredibly
Yeah,
white.
I believe so, yes.
Lost points in recognizability, but gained points in basically everything else.
Yay!
Ellie, you scored a 16.
Yo!
Yeah!
You gained bonus points with the big cat.
Big cat!
And also in the death factor. Which is
Right?
why I think that the death is an important qualification. So many ships are wrought to ruin because they are responsible for one of the other's deaths. It's just a thing. Jamila, you scored a 14, which is a very healthy score. You did lose a couple of points in the death factor. I was going to give it a straight 0. And then you mentioned that a near-death experience in the Edwardian period, which was basically practically almost a death sentence by most standards, is what finally inspired the getting of together. I will give that a 1, because sometimes you do need a near-death experience to truly bring out the feelings. It is quite chronically about sitting at your lover's bedside when they have been deeply injured or are falling into illness and going, what the fuck were you thinking? And also the ASMR of patching your wounds and calling you an idiot. Sam, Ivan and Yelena scored a 9, mostly because they're culture heroes, and they're also from a storytelling tradition that I don't personally recognize, and they did gain bonus points for sick-ass wolves.
Sick-ass wolves do deserve bonus points.
Sick-ass wolves do deserve bonus points.
Remind me to tuck that one away for our next in our retelling.
Oh, hell yeah.
Huyu and Shangya got a 13. They gained bonus points for fried dough, and sometimes you gotta inspire a love that spawns a festival, and also got points for yearning. There is so much yearning in Chinese mythology. Chinese mythology is like
yearning.
60% yearning by volume, and what isn't yearning by volume is Sun Wukong fucking shit up for everyone involved.
Yes! Monkey King's gotta do what the Monkey King's
Correct.
gotta do. Same thing with Hanuman.
Monkeys do be doing things. And of course, Eros and Psyche got a 15. They lost a little bit in the being responsible for the death of one another. They got pretty much high marks in everything else.
Woo! Lesbian vampires stay winning!
It was almost a tie. It was almost a tie between lesbian vampires and Eros and Psyche. They were both tied at 15, and then Ellie said Big Cat. And I am not immune to Big Kitty.
Big Kitty.
Well,
Although, given that it's lesbian vampires, should it be Big Pussy?
All right, well, that was fun, and you know what? I just have to say, kudos to all of us for not going with the basics with Darcy and Lizzie or Benedict and Beatrice, but with that said, shout out to them.
Shout out to the obvious picks.
Yes.
Like,
shout out to all of us for not going with any Disney ones.
Right? Oh, no, I specifically was just like, I'm going to avoid the classic Disney fairy tale ones, and
That's part of why I course corrected. I was almost going to say Swan Lake, but then I was like,
technically
actually no. I know it's not Disney, but everybody thinks it's Disney, and we'll get into it when we have our our first Swan Lake episode.
Oh, yeah.
Blame Don Bluth for that.
The question is it going to be the animated one, or is there going to be Black Swan? Only time will tell.
Ooh, I love Black Swan.
Either way, I'm going to be insufferable.
All right, final thoughts, folks?
love makes the world go round in all of its many forms. I just wish that some writers were better at writing it.
Hell yes.
Causing the death of your loved ones is fine in fiction. Do not do it IRL.
We need more public domain lesbians.
If there are any lesbian vampires out there, my Twitter is...
If there are any bisexual vampires out there, my Twitter is...
You know, I'll take bisexual vampires too. I'll even take straight, but like occasionally sway.
Straight, but into some kinky shit?
Yeah, I'm gonna say straight vampires with a boyfriend. I do not want you and your boyfriend to see me from across the bar and really like my vibe. There's my line. The list of straight couples I want to unicorn hunt me begins and ends with Mulder and Scully.
Valid.
Valid.
But yeah, happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there. Whether you are coupled or thrupled or single, enjoy yourselves. However it is, you're gonna enjoy yourselves.
Remember, the chocolate goes on sale the next day.
Hell yes.
Mm-hmm.
February 13th is Galentine's Day. February 15th is Discount Chocolate Day, also known as Lupercalia, where we get even more good wolves.
Yay!
Hell yeah.
Horny Werewolf Day.
Hey, when you're living your life right, every day is Horny Werewolf Day.
That's so true.
Where's my monster fucking Faust retelling?
Ooh.
I'm working on it.
Ooh.
Save it for the next NRE telling. I'll find a way to sneak it in.
Listen,
It's hidden behind the Witch of the What She Did River.
listen, between
In our retelling, Oops All Wolves edition.
no, in our retelling, Oops All Monster Fucker.
Listen, don't tempt me. I will make a Monster Fucker edition.
Listen, we still gotta do the Shakespeare High School.
Oh, I know. Anyway, all right. Who's got stuff to plug?
6 Degrees of Star Wars is chugging along. Our next episode for Black History Month will be out this month. We're talking Red Tails. And other than that, I will say keep pounding the pavement, supporting resistance against genocidal colonial actions. Free Palestine.
My Twitter is LSR42. My Tumblr is football in tuxedos with dashes between the words. I have a D&D podcast, which includes only Sam this time.
Hello.
We've recorded our first episode. We want to get a little bit of a backlog built up before we start posting, but that is coming soon.
The enemy of D&D will always be scheduling.
Sadly true.
Also of this podcast, to be honest.
You are unfortunately correct there. My plug is The Instrumentality of Mankind Stories by Cordwainer Smith. They're on Gutenberg.ca because Canadian public domain. They were written in the 40s through the 60s, so there's some stuff that reflects its time, but overall, the saga that it tells is amazing and deserves to be known by more people.
You can find me on Twitter at DreamsRebel. Hockey is hockeying, and we are in the backstretch, folks. We are past the All-Star break. We're now in the run for the cup. And you can also find me on WordPress at FilmLion. I need to get more stuff posted there, but you can still find me there.
And you can find me on SWorkRune on Tumblr, where I post graphics and listicles. You can also follow us on the IER Tumblr and ehretelling.tumblr.com.
As for me, as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok at Faye Riviera. And you can also follow this show on Twitter at IER Podcast. Please also consider supporting this show either financially through our Patreon, Ko-Fi, or the Support the Show link in the show notes, or simply spread the word about the podcast and leave us reviews and ratings to help us reach the next chapter of our story. And I promise I'm going to do everything within my power to make sure we get the La Belle et la Bete double feature up as soon as possible. I mean, it's not like there's anything else I could post up as next week's episode. Wait, what am I hearing right now?
One. It's time.
Oh! Okay, I mean, that's definitely something. But I mean, I did always say that I wouldn't do more than one trailer for a
The best
retelling
way
the new segment.
to bring folks together
Something has changed within me.
is to give them a real good enemy.
You're green. I am. Something is not the same.
Oh! Okay. We'll be like a week late in discussing this, but okay.